Honorable Representatives, thank you for listening to me today.
And don't forget to identify yourself.
My name is Lawrence Roberta.
Thanks.
Everything Scott has already said, I can tell you how it's affected me. I suffer from reactive airway disorder. I can't even walk a block and a half to my mailbox without having to puff on my inhalers. I have two. One's a steroid to help open my lungs up. I had to have a Nissen wrap, which is they take the top part of your stomach and wrap it around your esophagus because the valve into my stomach was no longer there. While I was in Iraq at the water treatment plant, the sodium dichromate was everywhere. It was stacked in bags. It appeared that somebody had taken the bags to the doors because it was stored in buildings and physically stacked it there and destroyed the bag, so you had to walk through it to be exposed to it, to get in. And like Scott said, we had to protect the people that were going into these buildings, so we had to climb through it just like they did, up and over and through. And I had some of the chemical blow onto in my face, onto my chicken patty, while I was eating. I tried washing it off, and all I can say is it burnt like hell going down. I have pains in my lung, go all the way through to my back. I have to take painkillers for those every single day, along with the inhalers. I have post-traumatic stress disorder like you wouldn't believe. I could fill up probably the whole rest of your day, and I'm sure you don't want to listen to it. I know I don't want to talk about it. So,
thank you. Other questions? Representative Berger.
Thank you, and thank you both for your service, and thank you for coming down here today. What does this look like? It was just orange powder that was everywhere? You said that the bags were open and you were just walking through it. What does it look like?
It's a crystalline powder. There was actually 3 different types of things that I remember. There was sodium dichromate, there was garnet. Garnet is a kind of a crushed rock, and there was activated charcoal. It was just all over the place. There was one guy, I forgot what his name was, an Iraqi guy that was working in one of the rooms there, that he had sores all over him. He looked like a methamphetamine addict with all the sores from the chromium that he was showing us. And I'm like, okay. But the Army was saying, oh, this is nothing. But then after I got home, I looked at the MSDS, the Material Safety Data Sheet, on the internet, and I'm like, how can this be what this is, what the Army is saying this is? This absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. I absolutely feel like they just flat out lied to us. And whenever you tried to go get help, the medics, the regular Army medics would say, oh, you're just trying to get out of your job. Go back to your job.
So, Paul, you were having symptoms while you were in Basra.
Yes.
You were feeling the effects of this.
As a matter of fact, my father-in-law had a brain surgery in July of 2003, so I came home on emergency leave, and I was so sick I couldn't figure out why. The medics wouldn't help me, so I went to my regular doctor, and my regular doctor took some blood, and he says, well, your liver enzymes are like through the roof. And he goes, we need to figure out why. And I said, well, unfortunately, I won't be here long enough for you to do any follow-up tests. And my doctor was pretty concerned, but of course I had to go back. And when I went back and told my first sergeant that when I got back in September, we had a briefing in November at Port Shuaibah, and my first sergeant physically grabbed me and took me up to the lieutenant colonel who gave the briefing and said, you need to talk to this man. And they took me to Camp Doha in Kuwait, gave me a bunch of tests, and he filled out this paperwork. And on that paperwork, it says specifically that I will have adverse health effects due to my exposure to sodium dichromate. Specifically says that.
Representative Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there anything happening? Are there any forms of compensation coming from the federal government on this?
Well, after I've been, oh my gosh, if you add up all of my other problems that I have, I think I had to be almost like 300% disabled to be considered 100% disabled. So with a family, I get $20-some-odd hundred a month, which is nowhere near what I made when I worked at Xerox and before when I was a police officer.
So I guess what I wanted is, it's kind of a strange question, and I do thank you for your service to our country and to our state. The two other sacks of stuff you indicated, the garnet and the activated charcoal, are definitely things that they use in almost all treatment plants. Is this other ingredient used in the treatment plant? I mean, why was it there? Do we know?
To my knowledge, what I found out afterwards, actually, I finally watched the movie Aaron Brockovich just a few months ago, and I went, is that the same stuff? So I got on the internet and I looked, and the water is for is you have to pump the water into the ground to keep the ground pressure equal in order to extract the oil. Now, obviously, you can't just pump straight water through steel pipes, otherwise they corrode. It's an anti-corrosion agent.
Oh, okay.
That
makes some sense to me.
Discovered.
So it was there for the oil wells more than it was there for the water treatment part of the plant. Got you. Okay, that makes some sense. I appreciate that. Appreciate that information for me. Other questions?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you all. Is there other? Yes, Representative Shields.
Mr. Chair, when I introduced this bill, it was to call attention to this issue for all Oregonians so that we could begin to make some atonement for the failure that we have done in how we treat our warriors. I want you to know that there is the possibility of amending this bill to increase the dollar amount, and there is the possibility of amending this bill so that the third party who is primarily responsible or largely responsible, Kellogg, Brown & Root, might reimburse the state at the conclusion of legal action.
And I guess my question is, do you have any amendments at this time? Is it something we should work here, or is it something that this has a subsequent referral to Ways and Means, obviously, so.
You know, because it is getting late in the session, sending it on to Ways and Means might be a proper way to go, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Any further testimony?
I think Mr. Evans may have had to leave,
Okay.
left, but Paul Evans from the governor's office said they absolutely support the bill.
Okay. So we will close our public hearing on House Bill 30.